This is Truly Independent, a show that demystifies the indie film journey by documenting the process of releasing independent films in theaters. Each week, Garrett Batty and I, Darren Smith, will update you on our journey, bringing guests to share their insights into the process and answer your questions. Garrett, hey man, how's it going?
Hello, Darren. It's going very well. Nice to see you.
You too. For those who are listening and not watching, I'm doing my yoga stretches that I do at the beginning of every episode because this is a big one. We got a good one today for the listeners. But hey, man, we're gonna do a calypso today and give people an update on Faith of Angels because we are getting inundated. I mean, for me, it's multiple times a week. For you, I imagine it's multiple times a day of where can I watch Faith of Angels? Is it on DVD? Is it on streaming? Where can I watch it? I want to watch the movie. And so we're going to give a little update on how things are going with post-theatrical release of Faith of Angels. And maybe we kick off with, you had a cool event. So tell us about that.
Yeah, I do. And hopefully, again, this will be about Faith of Angels, but in just the general context of the podcast to say, hey, for every independent filmmaker, you've got to eventually release your film. And so hopefully us sharing this kind of update on where we are as far as releasing this is a pattern I think a lot of people could have access to or could duplicate. And so hopefully this will be very helpful and not just to talk about one specific movie. But yes, so Faith of Angels right now is available on a few streaming platforms, just very kind of direct to audience streaming platforms, one of which being Angel Studios. So they invited us to come down for a live stream to essentially do an hour-long show about kind of behind the scenes Faith of Angels, and we had some of the cast. We had John Michael Finley with us, and Kirby Hayborn, and Michael Bradford, and then also Joshua Dennis, on whom the story is based, was with us. And so we went to their little studio down in Provo and sat with them. I think John called in from his home back on the East Coast. But yeah, we chatted about the movie, and I think it went really well.
That's awesome. So we should let people know too that the film's been on Angel's streaming platforms since February 11th, and it's doing well. I don't know actual numbers. You probably have a better insight into that, but from what I gather, many people have watched it on Angel streaming.
Yeah, I mean they have just a kind of a weekly. Well, they don't have a weekly report. There is a report that is available, and it tells us, again, we've got three indicators. There's the feature that's with them, the trailer, and the first 15 minutes of the film or 18 minutes of the film, kind of a sneak peek look. And obviously the more, if you have a series with them, that's also going to be indicated in that report. So, it might be smart for us to cut together a behind the scenes thing and put 20 minutes of behind the scenes footage up there, because that would also go to our minutes streamed, relating to this title. But then, I can just log on and see, well, I don't log on. Whatever the link is that they sent me shows the viewers, or I guess how many views those three items are getting, and we're in 6 weeks, we're at 260,000+ views, which is great. They've got 1 million subscribers. So if a quarter of their subscribers have watched some sort of Faith of Angels element, that's a pretty good ratio to get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. So let's talk a little bit about maybe higher level, making the choice of what types of platforms to release your film on, because typically what filmmakers will do is they'll go and do like the rentals and the purchases and the physical media first as a window before it goes to streaming. And so I know that part of the deal of us releasing on these platforms was there was demand there. They're approaching us and saying, we want your movie on this platform. And so that's probably part of the decision-making process. But for you, thinking about, okay, what are the windows for this film and how are we going to parse this out over the next however many months? How did you come to the decision of, let's do streaming with Angel first before, because we don't have physical media out. We don't have it on iTunes or Amazon to purchase or rent. So maybe talk to the audience about that.
Well, it's all theory stuff for me right now, Darren, but I think that there's reason to believe that in the past we used to we would window it out per format, right? We say, we're going to release on DVD and home video, or I guess a home video. We're going to DVD and Blu-ray. First we'll do theatrical, and all the people, we're doing nationwide theatrical, and everybody can go see it, right? For an independent film, that is not a typical scenario. So you're finding niche audiences theatrical. We're going to release to this particular audience theatrically. Great. So they get to go see it. That is their viewing habit, and they get to go see it. A lot of times, those audiences aren't the ones that are streaming it on Angel or any other platform that they subscribe to for a niche title, for an independent title. So we did our theatrical run, great. That created an incredible awareness. And now when we go to independent distributors like Angel Studios or Living Scriptures or whatever else other independent distributor there is, streamer, we're releasing to their audience non-exclusively, right? They control their audience, and until I control a million people audience, then you know, then I that's when I'll release it to my audience specifically. But right now, Angel controls a million people audience. They get to their audience, and they know how to advertise and talk to that audience. Living Scriptures did the same thing. So I don't know if I'm answering your question. We went to those platforms because they came to us. They offered support with funding and advertising opportunities, and they were very attractive to us. That's significant for an
Mhm.
independent film. Creating that type of awareness, you need a partner to do that with, and Angel is an incredible partner to do that. I had a meeting a week or two ago with Living Scriptures. Same thing. They're saying, look, this is the number 2 movie right now on their entire platform. They released it in November, and it's still just generating. So
Yeah.
whatever their audience is, they're continuing to see it, and Living Scriptures is advertising directly to their audience and receiving the benefits for that.
So if I'm kind of trying to analyze why you made the decision, it seems like free marketing. Like we're going into other windows of international distribution and sales, as well as, we'll have it on DVD and on available for purchase in the coming months. But imagine the cost of an 80 million impression ad campaign coming from us. Like that's
You couldn't do
I,
that.
I know
You
what those
couldn't do it.
numbers look like, and that's a lot of money that it would cost us, and we're getting it for free. We're getting free marketing to not just Angel subscribers, but like Angel's putting it on Facebook and online, and they're running ad money behind it. And so all of a sudden, there's this, and I can speak to this is just like my experience, but the uptick in requests of where can I watch it or when is it coming out on DVD definitely picked up over the last month as the marketing campaigns from Angel and Living Scriptures have picked up.
Right, right, right. And that was fascinating to me because again, with previous titles, typically we're very, very protective, or the distributor is very protective of that. When I walked into Angel Studios last night, and we got Jeff Harmon and Jordan Harmon, who are both, I mean, that's president and CEO of Angel Studios, short of Neil Harmon. They both pull me aside and say, "Hey, man, your title is doing incredibly well here, like surprising well. We think it's an evergreen title. How are your other sales doing? How are your online sales going?" And I had to sit there and think, never does a distributor, reach out and say, "How are your other channels?" They're usually saying, "Let's protect this. Let's
Yeah.
protect this. Don't release on DVD yet, wherever." And they were, and I kind of sheepishly said, "Well, we're still looking at getting it up on iTunes and Amazon, or Apple TV and Amazon." And they were just kind of blown away, like, "You got to get it out there." And they told me anecdotally, they said one of their titles, "The Last Rifleman." Samuel Goldwyn released this movie a while ago, starring Pierce Brosnan. They released that a while ago. Now they've put it on Angel, has streamed it to their, guild members, and they said, "Look, when we released Last Rifleman, Samuel Goldwyn reached out and said, our online sales from other platforms have done better that since it's like then how do I phrase this? When we released this only years ago online, we got a certain amount of sales. Now that we've put on Angel, we've done more in this month than we did when we initially released the movie.
Wow.
Does that make
I mean,
sense?
that's high
I
praise.
really kind of jumbled that whole explanation.
That's okay. I think we got the gist, which is they're putting a lot of money into marketing the titles that
Yes.
are available on streaming. And they're incentivized to do it right now because even though it's not an exclusive window for Angel, we don't have it elsewhere. So they know that they're going to get the lion's share of the marketing spend coming back to them because they're growing and they have awareness for their platform and stuff as well. So another question or a follow-on question is, I shared a link with you to a YouTube video from an interview like 2, maybe 3 years ago of a filmmaker who self-released their films or self-released a film and did 7 figures in revenue, and lamented the fact that they were doing really well on just renting and purchasing the movie, like selling direct to the audience. Well, I shouldn't say direct, but through a platform. Like they would have it on Amazon or iTunes for rental or for purchase. And they were even able to make an ad campaign where they could spend $1,000 and make 7,000. It's like, man, I would do that all day long. I'd go
Yeah,
borrow
that's
money to
printing
to
money.
put
Yeah,
into that funnel, right?
yeah,
And so, but then they talked about how they released it on streaming on Prime and Netflix. And the model is now, you're getting paid cents per stream, like 3-4 cents per stream, not per minute, per hour, per stream. So like that's
yeah.
an episode topic for another day, but
Well, if
I'm
you go, I mean,
becoming a staunch advocate for indie filmmakers to say, don't ever do that. Like ever, not even as like a last window, unless you've got another movie coming out and you want to give Prime or Netflix a 3-month window to do that. But we don't have that kind of leverage to say, hey, Netflix, we're going to give this to you and then we're going to pull it for 3 months just to get awareness for our next movie that's coming out, like a sequel or something. So again, I don't want this to be a marketing episode for Angel, but like, are the models that we're currently working with Angel and with Living Scriptures, are they different enough to say, oh, this is actually going to be profitable for indie filmmakers and not just a way to say we got lots of views but no money?
I won't with Jeff and Jordan last night talking a little bit about the revenue that comes in. I can say yes. I can say yes based on what they've told me. The end of the quarter is the end of March, and we'll receive a check in 45 days from that. And there's reason to breathe easy and have hope that indie filmmaking is still very much alive and profitable.
Yeah.
Um, so uh, again, that who knows? Ask me again in May 15th if the
We
check
will.
arrives. Yeah, I'm
We
sure.
will
Yeah,
for
and
sure.
then again,
I'm putting it in
uh,
my calendar. Ask Garrett about money. But yeah, I
I get
think,
a text from Darren early
yeah,
in the morning
today's the day.
just to hear them again. I mean, yes, they're going to tout their own platform, which is great, but for them then to acknowledge and say, look, it's kind of about their audience. Like they have an audience, they've built an audience, they want to feed that audience, and they're not. It's not the film. It's not, I don't know. There's still lots of process, but that old vernacular, like content is king. There's truth to that. The audience is kind of the target as far as what Angel Studios is building. They're saying we can build an amazing audience. Yes, because we have good content, and we're going to use our audience to curate good content. I don't think the Angels is the only people that are doing that, right? So
Yeah.
Darren, I mean, you're building an audience for your through your book sales and everything like that, and we start to know whether you have 1,000 or 3,000 or 10,000 people list that your book is going to have a positive impact on my business, right? And so I'm going to become your audience, and you know that whenever Darren releases a book, we're going to want to pay attention to that, right? And so you're building this audience. The content is good, but at some point you've got to provide your audience with additional things, and it might not be your next book, but it might be a friend's book or whatever it is, or a
Yeah.
seminar or whatever it is. And so there's content, yes, but it's your audience that trusts you.
Yeah, what's great is, they have an audience that is exactly the audience we want to align with for this movie, for example, right? Trying to release it on any other streamer, What kind of movies does Paramount Plus do? What kind of movies does Peacock do? What kind of movies does Netflix do? Uh, all of them, right? Whereas this one is faith-based, family-friendly, values-based, stuff that you can watch with your kids. And so that alignment alone, I think, is part of what's playing into the success that the film, that the title is having on the platform.
I
It'll be
think it's
interesting
important.
to see how it plays out as we release on other platforms and other mediums.
Yes, and as an independent filmmaker, I think you should remember that no platform has 100% of your audience. Even Netflix, if the golden goose is to get Netflix to take your movie, and you say, "You know what? No, Netflix does not have 100% of your film's audience." And so I would discourage anybody from going totally exclusive with anybody and say, "Look, we'll take it to your audience, great, but I'm going to go find an audience out in Southern Florida where they've got whatever 300,000 viewers and they want content."
Yeah. Yep, it's pretty amazing. And I think you saw some of that as well at NRB, where you're going, wow, here's pockets of audiences. Here are different groups that have audiences of tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people that also want this thing. They want media that they can watch with their family. And whether you're a faith-based filmmaker or a horror filmmaker or a drama filmmaker, it doesn't really matter. I think this
Exactly.
principle applies. You've got to figure out where is your audience and how do you speak to them in a way where they can instantly go, this project, this film aligns with my values. And so I'm going to invest my time and attention and my money into being able to watch that. Right. That's what we're ultimately talking about is commerce. Like, how
Right.
do you meet the demand that's already in the marketplace? Well, you could say, I released my film and then hope that those people show up. But the demand typically isn't that strong where everyone in your potential audience is looking every single day to see if Garrett Batty released another movie. You've got a dozen or maybe a couple hundred that are doing that because you're famous. But like, not everybody in your market is Googling, like setting up Google alerts for Garrett Batty's next movie. So we've got to take it
Why
to them.
not? Come
Why
on.
not? Come on, people.
Uh,
It's our call to action today. Go and set up a Google
Google alert.
alert for Garrett
Yeah,
and Darren
yeah, and
new
dust it
podcast
off.
episode.
You have to dust that Google alert off every 2 years. Let's see, I had a thought, I don't know if it left me. Oh, if you're thinking as an independent filmmaker, well, my audience is Netflix. If you're saying, look, the only people, and I keep saying Netflix, but where that's obviously the big behemoth that people we all want to get on. But the thought is starting to occur over releasing Faith of Angels and say, look, those that are only watching Netflix are not paying you money. They're not buying your product ever. You'll never get money for that. If you're saying, look, I only want to talk to Netflix people, you will never ever pay for your movie that way. And so you've got to figure out how to find and talk to those that are paying for the type of content you're creating, like directly paying.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not going to change somebody's habit by releasing a movie every 2 years. Right? If
Yeah.
they just sit on the couch with the remote binging Netflix series, this movie is not for them.
Yeah. Good point. So, what's next then? You've been, kind of in the background the last couple of months
Yeah,
going, all right, where else is this movie going to play? How else are we going to get this movie out in the marketplace? So, maybe talk to us a little bit about what strategies are you implementing? How are you approaching the process of, okay, there's other windows.
yeah.
How are we going to access those? Are you doing it yourself? Are you using an aggregator or a sales agent? Like, talk to us a little bit about the rest of the process going forward.
Okay, well, this is probably where you learn from my mistakes and not my actions, right? No, do as I say, not as I do. So right now I've got like a dozen tabs open on my Chrome browser of different places. Everything from Amazon, Seller Central. The Amazon in January updated their direct to independent film agreements, right? Where you can become a seller and place your title on Amazon for rent or pay to download or streaming. Certainly, there are checkpoints and guards, and they don't accept everything submitted. But I'm kind of in the weeds on that, on I'm in like up to my eyeballs in their contract and agreements to say, look, does it make sense for us just to release directly to Amazon for rental and pay? And what is the timeline on that, and how does that happen? So that is on my target, and it looks like that they do like 50%, uh, which is fine. That's more than zero, which I'm getting right now from Amazon. And
Right.
so the goal is to say, okay, well, if I have one title or a library of 8 features that I can kind of round the rights back up for, then I can either go as an independent seller or a contracted, like invited contract seller to Amazon. I think there's value in that. There's a lot of
Yeah.
value in that. Same thing, like I'm um, re renewing, I guess, my conversations with Bitmax or these other, there's Bitmax and Film Hub. And I think we've talked briefly about either of those on this show. I'm really kind of leaning, there's no endorsements here. I'm leaning toward Bitmax. I like the idea of just this one-time fee you pay and they can put it on all of these platforms. But there is a Reddit thread that says, no, you should do, Bitmax is great, you should do that, but reserve Amazon for yourself. Just go direct to
Hmm.
Amazon, which is kind of an
Interesting.
interesting thing. So I want to check how much effort it takes to put it directly on Amazon. And then thirdly, DVD. There's still a market for DVD. You look at some of these titles that are similar titles to what your genre is, and you say you can click on Amazon, DVD right now and search your different titles and say, oh, this particular film, and it says sold, 200 units last week or 200 units per month or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You say, well, 200 units is more than 0 units. And a quick DVD author job, costs you a couple $100 on Fiverr. And then I'm on another panel. I've got my DVD cover art that I'm working on and designing that, and just kind of getting it all done. It's the scrappy, like independent way. It's the same thing we did, Darren, when we released the movie in theaters. Like, okay, I guess I'm going to stay up late and design a website, and then we're going to design a poster, and you just do it. And I'm confident that something will hit. And yeah, there's a lot to release and a lot going on. Our goal, to summarize it, is by Mother's Day, this thing will be everywhere, as far as available everywhere, so that when people ask you, Darren, hey, where can I see it? You say, I don't know. Where do you watch movies?
Everywhere.
Go see it.
Everywhere you want to.
Go
Yeah,
rent it. Go buy it.
that's awesome. So, I mean, I'm watching the just scrubbing of the forehead as you're saying some of these things. So, like, how hard is it, and do we recommend that indie filmmakers take responsibility for all of those steps like you're taking, or is there a argument to be made for, hey, there are people who will happily take a percentage or a fee to do this stuff for you, and where do you kind of draw the line between, oh, it's definitely worth it to hand it off to somebody and have them do it, versus what seems like you're doing, which is all of it yourself?
Yeah, it's probably not smart to do it all myself. I mean, it as you know, your business mind, you can either build it or buy it, right? And is there a third one? Build or buy it, or don't do it.
Let's go with that. Yeah, I don't know that I have one for that.
So yes, we're either going to build our method of distribution or buy it. And you buy it by getting a partner to do it, and they're going to take their 30%, 40%, or whatever it is, and they'll do it. I we or build it, and I think fortunately I mean I've built it before on several films, and Three Coin Productions wants to build it for more films and for other people, and so this is a method that we can do, and I'd like to run this gauntlet one time and then build a team that can do this together. That's the direction I'm going, and I think that it will be well worth the effort. Happy to share that information with others who want to build it.
I think you're right, though, that it is essential to think about, okay, every time you bring on another distributor or sales agent, you may be giving up 20, 30, 40% equity in the returns of that. And that is such a massive chunk. We know that it's industry standard and it's quote unquote the way it is and the way it's done. But does it actually serve indie filmmakers like us who have a title, or in your case, 8 titles, that could go out there? Like, I think it just eats into the profitability so much, and they're in first position to recoup that amount. And so, thinking about as an indie filmmaker, you've got this ability to create your own truly independent film ecosystem, even if it's just you and your one film or your 6 or 8 films. Think about, okay, if on the very first time around you build this flywheel, and a flywheel is like this big massive behemoth thing that's, on a peg, and it's going to spin around, and it takes a Herculean effort to get it to go the first time around. So this first time that you are doing all of this distribution stuff yourself, it's going to suck. Like, you set a date, so now you have a timeline, which means there might be some late nights and some weekends that you're getting it done in order to get it done by May 15th. You could say, I'm going to get it done this year and take less time, but you don't want to do that. So you're saying, I want it done by May 15th. So that means Herculean effort. 100% of your time and focus is going to be on the distribution of these films over the next 6 weeks as you do this. But that first rotation is the hardest one. And then you're going to say, okay, great. Well, let's put Saratov approach into that same flywheel. Let's put Freetown into that one. Let's put Out of Liberty into that one. Let's put this one. And all of a sudden, with each consecutive film, it gets easier and easier. And because you're not giving away 20, 30% each time, it's going to grow faster and faster. And then what you've built is a system that now others can tap into and give you 15, 20, 25, 30, 35%, whatever you want to take, to say, look, I'm the house that has the relationship with these distributors and these outlets for faith-based, family-friendly stuff. And if you want to do that, I've already built the flywheel. So now you're talking to people who don't want to put in the time and effort to get that first spin around. And it's maybe not as enticing for them, because once they've done that first spin, they don't have a second film to go around again and again and again, or a third or a fourth or a fifth. So from the outside looking in, talking to Garrett, the owner of 3Coin Productions, is like, oh, that's kind of a no-brainer. It's going to suck for 6 weeks, but then you're going to have the first one done, and it's only going to get easier and faster, and it's going to give you greater outcomes with each time around that flywheel that you spin it. And once you start bringing in other people to keep that momentum going, and once you bring in other films, I mean, next year, NRB, you could be there on the flip side going, hey, I'm looking for content because I've got this flywheel and I can distribute your movie for you. And it all happens in the background, right? Because you've built the flywheel and the team to run it. So I'm excited to see you build that. And I think it's something we should, check in on every 6 months or so. Like, hey, how's that flywheel going? Because that's really, really big.
Well, yeah, I mean, it could be a very key tool in our goal to create films and create and release feature films. The downside is that, am I becoming the enemy? Am I starting to become a distributor? And for every 6 weeks that I'm here now designing cover art for a DVD release to sell a couple hundred units, that's 6 weeks that I'm not on set or writing or doing what I don't know, doing what needs to be done in order to create the movies that I want to release.
Yeah.
So I have to figure out that balance. And maybe it's a matter of going back and reading the book, The E-Myth, and finding this balance between the creative and the business, and turning that over to somebody that can do that, or deciding what I want to do. And that's more of a
No, it's good to hear how you're
personal
thinking.
soul searching rather than
Yeah.
information.
It's really good for the audience to hear how you're processing it in real time, because these are decisions they're going to be confronted with at some point in their journey. But there's this saying that my friend Carl Richards brought up to me multiple times, and he says that profit equals permission. And so by cutting out the middlemen in this process, you, Garrett, 3Coin Productions, can be more profitable, which means you can then give yourself more permission to do the thing you want to do. So because you're not paying 20 to 30% to a distributor, that 20 to 30% can now go to someone who's running that part of the business for you, right? So you can ultimately hire someone to find new titles. You can have a graphic designer, to do all that stuff. You can find someone to handle the actual physical button pushing of submit, check in on this stuff, create a report, send it out to filmmakers. Like, it's a team of 2 or 3 people. And
Yeah.
then that thing is spinning independent of whether or not you touch it. And that's what you're building towards with the flywheel, is ultimately something that someone else can run and manage, and you get the profit from it. That then gives you permission to go and invest in your next film, or frees up your time to do the next project or whatever it is. So yeah, it's going to be, you're not going to start going to production in the next 6 weeks because you're focused on this, and that's okay. But then after that, it's going to get easier and easier. And then that balance shifts between, okay, I built this thing now, so now I can go do this thing. I'm in the same mode with financing and fundraising right now. I'm not on set. I wish I was. I wish, part of me wishes that somebody was paying me a monthly fee to be producing their movie right now, because man, that would be great. Because financing, raising money doesn't pay very well. It doesn't pay anything. You're raising money, not paying yourself money to raise the money, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm in that same boat of, I'm going to take 6 months or 12 months, however long it takes, to get this first flywheel going, which is the first fund. But then after that, fund 2 is going to be easier, and fund 3 is going to be easier. And by the time we're producing movie 15 and 20 and 30, that thing's spinning full speed. We can
Yeah.
just keep making movies all the time. And that's going to be a crap ton of fun, right? But
Yeah.
I know that I have to take 6 to 12 months of grunting it out and grinding it out every day with this Herculean effort, because I don't have a team behind me to get this first fund raised. But even then, I know once that first big check comes in, the second one's going to be easier. The third, fourth, all the way through 10th, they're going to come at rapid pace. So I think it's an important principle for the audience to take away, that like sometimes you not trade the big goal that you're after of like being a director, being a writer, being on set. You're not giving up on it. You're saying, I'm going to go over here and invest time and energy and even money into this J curve, which is like, it's going to suck. It's going to go below equilibrium for who knows how long. And it feels like it keeps going down and down and down and down. But at some point, it's going to start upticking. And when it does that, it breaks through that equilibrium, and it's almost, vertical. It's exponential growth at that point, because you invested in a system, a flywheel that can then generate those outcomes without you. Whereas if you just keep going linearly, yeah, it might be better for the next 6 or 12 or 18 months, but it will never be better than that J curve. If you're watching the video, it's way easier to see the hand
Yeah. I like
motions.
your hand motions. Maybe we should describe some hand motions.
But a
Is
J curve is something that goes down first. If you're plotting it on an
Yeah.
XY
Yeah.
graph,
Yeah.
it goes
We,
down first. It sucks. And then at some point it comes back up. And
and I
that's when it
think,
gets
Darren,
really.
I think too, and maybe this is more philosophizing than actual evidential, experience based sharing. But if you have your, if you're saying that, hey, every filmmaker, every independent filmmaker, whatever it is, whatever your goal is going to have some sort of J curve associated with it. You choose what that is. You choose your hard, right? And you say, look,
Yeah.
okay, I don't want to be a graphic. I don't want to design my my own web page or my DVD menu for a movie I'm making, right? But I want to be able to make movies. And so, maybe it is a matter of saying, look, that J curve for some people, that trajectory is, I got to shoot everybody else's music video, or I'm going to have to work on a bunch of films, studio stuff, as a not a director, to be able to build that network or build the team or whatever, go through that J curve and learning curve to the point where I can now make the content that I want to make or that I'm passionate about, or that project that has been my life goal to make it. Yeah, whether so you have to choose your heart, I think, and that is probably whether you're an independent filmmaker or a something easier like a rocket scientist.
Yeah. That's well said. Choose your hard. Maybe that's the episode title today. But it's 100% true across the board, right? You got to pay your dues as a PA before you start going up in production. You got to pay your dues as a camera utility or as a second or whatever AC in order to become a DP. Like every single path in film is a J curve. It's something where you have to invest time and money and energy into that thing, so you're below the equilibrium level of zero. Like if you kept not investing time and money and energy into that thing, you'd stay at zero. But at some point you invest it, so you're in the negative. And then it starts to pay off if you keep going. And if you're smart about building the systems, then it can accelerate and be an exponential growth at that point. So it doesn't work that way for everybody. I'm not saying this is the secret to success in the film industry, but every single thing that's worth doing requires a movie and requires investment up front. So you're in the hole $1 million. And then you climb out of that hole. And if your marketing starts to compound and you do it smartly, like we're talking about today, then the growth over time starts to go up and it far surpasses what you could have done with that money and time and energy otherwise. Right. And that's what we're all hoping and working towards. But I
Yeah.
think systems and flywheels are certainly something that filmmakers should pay attention to, because that's where you can generate more profit over time. It gets easier and easier the more times around that flywheel you go.
It all makes sense, man. Who knows? Tune in next week where we're probably at the bottom of that J curve going, what are we doing? I just want to get a real job.
So my flywheel fell off and it's on the ground and it's not spinning anymore.
My hook got snagged into some sort of tree behind me.
No,
No, it
it's
was
good.
you bring up Flywheel, and we had that live stream last night with Angel Studios, and it was fun to chat with John Finley. And John shouted out the editors. One of the questions was, "What was your favorite moment in making the film, or whatever, or what's a favorite scene, or scene you're most proud of?" We're all kind of like, "Well, how do you say, how do you point to yourself and say, oh, I'm proud of this?" It's kind of there's no way that doesn't sound kind of
Self-serving. Yeah.
self-serving. But John, as classy as he knows how to answer that question. He goes, "I'll tell you what I'm most proud of." He goes, "I don't know how to fly fish one bit, but based on our edit, it looks like I fly fish. So I'm most proud of our editors for putting that together." And I was like, "Yeah." So there's a flywheel tie-in right there.
Well, and adding on to that, one of the editors was John's stand-in on a reshoot day because John was in New Jersey, and we needed some pickup shots of John in the waders and in the shirt, and so Aaron, one of our editors,
Aaron Thornton, brilliant
donned the
editor.
gear, and here we go. It's pretty amazing. So yeah, the edit team, props to them.
Props to them. They went
Very
above
cool,
and beyond.
man. I do think it's worth a short conversation about what's going on with the box office this year, because everybody is lamenting the death of cinema again. It's happening again. We go through the death of cinema every year as soon as something doesn't perform according to expectations from random people on the internet. So I think it's worth 5 or 10 minutes of our time to talk about box office. I believe the big release this weekend was Snow White from
Snow
Disney.
White. Yeah.
And, underperformed. Now we say things like underperformed, and it cracks me up because, man, as an indie filmmaker, I would love to make $42 million opening weekend in 3 days, like $10,000 per screen average on 4,200 screens. It's so hard for me to go, oh yeah, that's terrible outcome. Man, it sucks for them. That must be a crappy movie. Like I can't do that because it's $42 million. And the next largest film, because a lot of times we see where it's like 42, 41, 35, 30. But no, this week 42, and then the second film was 4,200.
Oh, you're talking about 4.2 million.
Sorry, 4.2 million for the
Black
next
Bag.
highest movie, Black Bag, which is in its second week of release. It's just crazy to me. So, thoughts on this? I mean, I don't want to talk about Snow White as a movie because that's neither here nor there. We're not people who
We're not reviewers.
right? I don't care. But $42 million to me is like, how is that bad?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm not in those Disney offices. I have been before in those Disney
Yeah.
offices as a temp worker when I worked out in LA. And so those mornings after, when a movie doesn't perform to expectations, those are dreadful mornings, right?
Hmm.
And you come in and go, "Hey, it doesn't matter. I mean, we worked our guts out to put that thing on 4,200 screens, and we spent $100+ million to market this thing, and we navigated through very treacherous cancel culture with a couple of different stars with different opinions that we're trying to figure out how to appeal to a broad audience, and we only did 10,000 per screen. when other wide releases have done better, then yeah, that is something you scratch your head and go, okay, gosh, is it our theaters down, or is it the movie, whatever. So I could see why that there are these internet um, articles the following Monday saying, "Is cinema dead?" Obviously those get clicks and things like that.
Yeah.
Um, I
But
don't know.
it did half of what Captain America did last month. 88 million and 21,000 per screen average on 4,100 screens. So like I just feel like Disney's going to be fine. And
Well, yeah, we can get
I
in.
don't know.
One of the guys I follow is Wade Majors. Is an incredible, very, very opinionated critic, not only movie critic but like industry critic. And yeah, his take on Disney is very insightful as far as maybe return to your roots and talk to the broad audience. What stands out to me is Last Supper is an independent film, faith-based film released a few weeks ago, right? 2 weeks ago. It was number 6 last week out. And right this week it did another 1.3 million. It's in the top 10. This is not the Chosen Last Supper, which is coming out in a couple of weeks.
Oh
But
wow.
this is kind of like, I don't know if you remember when DVDs were a huge thing, and Redbox would get, like, if we knew that Snow White and the Huntsman was coming to DVD, Redbox would release a Snow White ripoff, or kind of B movie type thing. And not that that's what The Last Supper is, but the timing of the release of The Last Supper, knowing that The Chosen Last Supper season 5 is coming out, and they've known about that for years. It's curious. It's very curious timing. There was a conversation about, would chosen audiences be confused that The Last Supper, if I go and this is coming out now before The Chosen's Last Supper, am I going to be confused? Am I going to buy a ticket and think, wait, why are they using a different cast? Why is this not where's Jonathan Rumi? And I guess the chosen response was, they'll know. Yeah. Which I think is so great. So anyway, congrats to independent film. We getting number 10, breaking the box office there.
I'm curious because it's from Paper Air Media and I can't find them anywhere online. The only thing it's that I'm kind of connecting it to is Paper Airplane, which is like Hanger is
Yeah.
something that we used in the release of our films with the marketing process. So I wonder if they're trying their hand at distribution or if it's just two completely different companies.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. That's a good question. We need
But
to
there's
have
no link to them. I don't see any other films that they've done, and so that's an interesting one.
Brandon Jones from Film Frog on it so he can talk about Hanger and the Paper Airplane.
That'd be cool.
Because that's a very good resource. So maybe I'll reach out to Brandon Jones. Anyway, it's fun to see it. Yeah, I don't think the box office is dead. I do think that we find these niche audiences. Angel Studios has of Kings coming out, and I talked to Brandon Purdy last night, who's there at the offices, and he said that movie is selling on track. Uh, Sound of Freedom, as far as that opening weekend, the Sound of Freedom did 15 million.
There you
So
go.
they're
That'd be
very excited
amazing.
about that.
We would love to see it. There was also a, a thing that's making the rounds on LinkedIn this week, which was like Cinema United kind of released a study where it was talking about, people want to go to theaters and they like the theater experience. It's valuable. It's worth the cost of entry. People like going to movies. The problem isn't the experience, it's the supply. It's what movies are in theaters. And
Ah,
so to be seeing more family friendly stuff, to be seeing more things that are more accessible to broader audiences excites me. I'm not against R-rated movies. I love them. Like I thoroughly enjoyed Mickey 17. Like there's nothing in my mind as a consumer wrong with PG or with rated R stuff, but as a producer and going into being a financier executive producer through my fund, like I got to look at the marketplace and go, what is the existing demand? Who's being underserved? There were 300 R-rated movies released in theaters last year. There were 20 PG movies released last year. And PG-13 sometimes is too risky for a mom of 4 kids and wants to take their family out on the weekend. Maybe sometimes they're opting out of the PG-13 stuff. And so to be able to give the audience that's hungry for more media, for more content, for more films that they can watch as a family, I think is a smart move. So that's where I'm putting my bets right now. But it'll be really interesting to see how it plays out. I mean, everybody was lamenting the same thing last year, how the theatrical was down compared to the year before, and yet it ended up being, 200 million or something more than 2023. So we don't know how any movie is going to perform in the future this year. All we know is let's keep making good movies that people want to watch, and movies will be around for a long time.
I love it.
Awesome. Well, that's a good one. Hopefully you guys took away some good nuggets from today, like how to make the kind of decisions for your movies, not by saying just do what Garrett and Darren are doing, but to say, how are we thinking about it? And then apply it to your own situation. I think that's the takeaway. So if you like today's episode, do us a favor, share it with a friend. Tell somebody about it. Go spread the good word of Truly Independent exists, and we're out here trying to demystify the indie film journey. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Any last thoughts, Garrett?
Stay tuned. Thanks.
Awesome. We'll see you next week. Thank you for listening to this episode of Truly Independent. To join us on the journey, be notified, and ask us questions about today's episode, head over to 3coinpro.com/podcast and put in your name and an email address. If you're a fan of the show, please leave us a review on your favorite podcast app and be sure to share this. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week. Our intro and outro music is Election Time by Kjartan Abel.